We've officially wrapped up our last Formula One race weekend until May, so let's recap the highlights of a race weekend in Suzuka. Starting with FP1, due to the birth of his first child, Fernando Alonso was not in the car for FP1, being replaced by Jack Crawford. Alex Albon had a rough FP1, hitting the wall at one point and then later having a collision with Checo Perez. The Mercedes drivers were quick as usual, ending the session 1-2, George and then Kimi, and the McLarens had joined the party, being 3-4 ahead of both Ferraris. Moving on to FP2, Lando Norris lost a lot of runtime due to a hydraulic leak, and Arvid Lindblad also spent a majority of the session in the garage. At the end of FP2, we had Oscar Piastri topping the times, with Kimi Antonelli and George directly behind him. Moving on to FP3, our final practice session of the weekend, Lando Norris once again faced issues getting out onto track, suffering from an ERS issue this time, but was able to get back on track with about 20 minutes left. Ollie Behrman had a major spin at Spoon, where many drivers were struggling throughout the weekend. At the end of FP3, we had another Mercedes 1-2, Kimi Antonelli first, George second, with Charles Leclerc having the third fastest time. Moving on to our qualifying session, where the FIA reduced maximum energy recharge, we had a shock Q1 exit by Ollie Behrman, who has been having a wonderful season so far, with the other eliminated cars being Alex Albon, Checo Perez, Valtteri Bottas, and both Aston Martins. Moving on to Q2, we had a shock exit by Max Verstappen, who got knocked out by rookie Arvid Lindblad at the last second. Also joining Max in a Q2 exit were Esteban Ocon, Nico Hülkenberg, Liam Lawson, Franco Colapinto, and Carlos Sainz. At the end of qualifying, by surprise to no one, we had another Mercedes 1-2, but with Kimi claiming pole, back-to-back poles from China and Japan. George ended P2, Oscar Piastri P3, Charles Leclerc splitting the McLarens P4, Lando Norris P5, Lewis Hamilton P6, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine P7, followed by Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bortoleto P9, and Arvid Lindblad, the rookie, P10. Moving on to the Japanese Grand Prix, Oscar Piastri finally started the race. The Mercedes both got poor starts, leading to Oscar Piastri leading the Grand Prix into turn 1, followed by Charles Leclerc and then George Russell. George Russell was P3, but eventually got passed by Lando Norris. Lewis Hamilton also improved up to P5, and Kimi Antonelli was in P6 after the start. By lap 2, Kimi Antonelli was able to get past Lewis Hamilton back up into P5. On the third lap, George Russell was able to get back past Lando Norris back into third place. Then, in the following lap, George was able to get past Charles up into P2, with Oscar Piastri still strongly leading this Grand Prix. George and Oscar battled for P1, but Oscar was able to maintain the lead. On lap 11, Kimi Antonelli was able to get past Lando Norris up into P4. On lap 19, Oscar went to the pits to change his tires, and on lap 22, George Russell did the same, moving Kimi Antonelli up to P1. Then we had a major crash by Ollie Behrman, where he was seen limping away from his vehicle. He was fine, he just had a knee contusion, which brought out a safety car and changed the entire race. I mean, it was literally like 20 seconds after George exited the pits. Like, what luck is that? On the safety car restart, Lewis Hamilton was able to get by George Russell into P3, and on lap 37, George Russell had an issue that led to Charles Leclerc passing him, getting up into P4. This is where my stress began as a Ferrari fan, because we had another Ferrari battle incoming. Lewis and Charles gave us another bit of incredible wheel-to-wheel racing, sending my heart rate through the roof. But in the end, Charles was able to pass and get up into P3. On lap 43, George Russell was able to get past Lewis Hamilton up into P4, and he was coming for Charles. Lewis Hamilton had a lockup and went off track, and Lando Norris said that Lewis Hamilton needs to give the position back. On lap 48, Lando Norris got past Lewis Hamilton up into 5th place. George and Charles battled closely into the final laps, with Charles just being able to keep P3 and get that podium. To end the Japanese Grand Prix, we had Kimi Antonelli winning, securing his position as the youngest ever championship leader in F1 history. Oscar Piastri finished P2, proving that if you start the race, it's probably going to go pretty well for Oscar. And Charles Leclerc showed his greatness, keeping P3 and getting on that podium. George Russell was P4, Lando Norris P5, Lewis Hamilton P6, Pierre Gasly finished P7, with Max Verstappen right behind him P8, who could not get past the Alpine, P9 Liam Lawson, P10 Esteban Ocon being our final point scorer. Lance Stroll and Ollie Behrman were our only DNFs, and Fernando Alonso managed to finish a race in that Aston Martin. Great work. Well, that is all for Formula One until May, where we come back to the Miami Grand Prix, so enjoy a little break, and we'll see you in 5 weeks.